Good evening, everyone, and season's greetings. I want to welcome you to our December Idea Jam. My name is Stan Baines, and I am your chair of this session and steering committee member of the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity, or CNIC for short. My fellow friends in imagination and in our steering committee with us this evening are scattered about on your Zoom screen. So if you could, committee, give us a wave, let everybody know who you are. Excellent. We are always so excited to be back in this hour-long gathering place in our video conferencing world to share with you our different topics from our hosts and guests, and then to the open discussions that happen afterwards with you. Our goal at Scenic here is to create an environment that looks at creativity and imagination from different backgrounds and angles, to create and foster open, forward-thinking dialogue as we look to find new ideas, look at things from different perspectives, and ask questions and explore our inner innovation. It is our hope through our discussions to expand our minds in new directions, collaborate through idea sharing, create partnerships in our differences, in our sameness, and in our beliefs. Let us find creativity through the exploration of our imaginations and ideas, and we do this together in our space. I would like to acknowledge at this time that as a resident of Clarence Rockland, Ontario, which sits just outside of the east end of the city of Ottawa in Ontario, Canada, that I'm chairing our meeting on traditional unceded land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe territory and people, and we're thankful for the opportunity. Our paths were once separate and our goals were apart like a chasm. In reconciliation, we journey forward, letting our dreams fly together in forgiveness and in love. Our Idea Jams is our space to learn, explore, and share. We want you to reflect and participate in your way and make this space your own. Not only do we want to hear your ideas and thoughts, but listening is equally as important. Our format here is very simple. Once our hosts have guided our discussions for the evening, we open the floor for chats and conversations to begin and see where our journey will lead us during our time together. Nothing is a bad idea. Every discussion point helps move the idea along. This is an opportunity to explore and share. Zoom is our platform of choice, as you can see. With Zoom, that allows you to participate in many different ways. It has built-in controls that allow you to raise your hand so we can see you when you wish to join in the conversation. You can add things, obviously, in our chat functions, and you can add little emoticons where you feel fit to keep the ideas flowing and to share your thoughts and ideas. Share your ideas your way and join in our jam. Finally, now for tonight's jam, we will be guided by Paul Syme. He will be taking us through a grounded theoretical process for revealing an imaginative leadership style. So without any more talking from me, over to you, Paul. It's all yours.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's so nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces to me. I regret not being able to make many of these this fall because I teach Thursday nights at Acadia, but not anymore. They're on vacation. So here we are. So thank you for making your pre-vacation night with me on a Thursday night and to hear the stuff I have to share. It's very kind. It's an honor to be able to share it with so many well-informed and eager people. What I'm going to do, I was looking at my stuff over the past couple of weeks ago. You know what? My defense is still fresh. It was a 15-minute long defense. If it's okay with you, I'm going to walk you through that content. And so it'll give you a grounding of my methodology. I skip over some stuff, but and how I came across the theory. And we'll have more time afterwards to unpack it together as there's, stuff in it. So if it's all right with you, I'm going to get rolling. Any questions before we get started? Okay, let's see if this comes up. It's going to toggle over. So I want to first thank you so much for joining my discussion, my thesis that asks, what are imaginative capabilities and how do they develop? A grounded theoretical approach to understanding imaginative leadership. First, I would like to acknowledge that this is being presented from Wolfville, Nova Scotia, on the unceded ancestral land territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and I acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. Oh yeah, if the images look weird, you're going to notice that they're all AI generated because I had fun exploring that as an artist, and yeah, saw what they did. So after introducing the study, I'll review the methodology and procedures that guided it. Then the themes and core categories in the findings will be discussed before sharing interpretations, recommendations, and where the study could lead to future research. I am positioned as a first-generation Canadian, Caucasian, cisgendered male and father of two. I've taught high school visual arts for 27 years and Bachelor and Master of Education courses for 12. I learned how to lead from the middle as an educational consultant and executive in the national and provincial organizations. I am also a professional visual artist and amateur actor. Here I am with my two kids, then singing in a musical, posing with my BEd class, and next to one of my wildflower paintings. Key definitions for this study. Capabilities. A capability is a practical ability to achieve an outcome. And educational leadership capabilities are the abilities to use relevant knowledge to solve complex problems, to promote a student culture of learning, to build trusting relationships that inspire and support teachers, and to improve and transform a school. Now, from a literature review of imagination, the term I'm using to define imagination in this study is a process of conjuring phenomena drawn from the conscious and unconscious thoughts that are made conscious in the form of information-rich perceptions, memories, image schemas, and bodily gestures, and occurs somewhere between stimulus, response, and behavioral action. Within the context of this study, then, an imaginative leader is a leader who applies imaginative capabilities as part of their professional practice. They take risks that matter. The purpose of this study is to provide educational leadership scholars with new knowledge that can inform a grounded theory on what imaginative capabilities are in leaders and how they develop. A grounded theoretical approach helped to unearth answers to my research questions that contemporary theory does not address. The research questions that guided this grounded theoretical study included: how do imaginative educational leaders conceptualize imagination and imaginative capabilities? What do imaginative educational leaders perceive as fundamental to developing their imaginative capabilities and imaginative practice? And what themes emerge as theoretical outcomes that might inform professional learning for imaginative leaders in education? What is grounded theory and why does it matter? Grounded theory is a research innovation by Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss, created in response to a need for scholarly protocols that enable generation of new theory on phenomena that is not well explained by existing theory. As a pragmatic approach, I use grounded theory in this study as a methodology that abstracts participant experiences into theoretical statements that explain their understanding of imagination and how their imaginative capabilities developed. The next slide discusses the procedures that guided this study. To select a population to study through Strauss and Juliet Corbin's approach to grounded theory, following a snowball and link tracing technique, I invited 15 educational leaders who have led innovative initiatives in an educational context. Upon being invited to participate, participants self-selected into the study through a tool asking if they lead with professional staff and conceive of or significantly shape an innovative vision that they successfully integrated into their school. For a sec. There we go. First, I hosted semi-structured one-on-one interviews over Microsoft Teams, and interview questions were framed to learn the context, constraints, conditions, strategies, and consequences for imaginative activities. Then I sent transcripts to participants to verify their sentiments were accurately captured. After that, data samples collected from transcripts were open-coded using participant words. For my analysis, emerging categories, samples, and memos were actually coded, constantly compared, and abstracted using common representations of imaginative capabilities. Then I used NVivo software to aid in the sorting, line-by-line coding, and comparing of sample data. After comparing categories of actual coded selective coding, united core categories around a core category were sample data saturated into reliable themes. Saturation was noted when no new similarities or differences could be identified. You're looking at a blank slide right now? You are. Now I'd like to present my findings. Okay. Six themes of holistic behaviors emerged from the data and were sorted into two core categories. I call sense, think, act, and ponder, enact, play. These core categories are composed of behavioral couplets, as seen in the columns on the left. The core category of sense, think, act is composed of sensing, thinking, acting, and daring, trying. Ponder, enact, play captures the behavioral couplets of wandering, pondering, exploring, enacting, and collaborating and playing. Findings are represented here as two core categories, each with three behavioral themes and three imaginative capabilities. On the left in blue is the core behavioral category of sense, think, act. And on the right in orange is ponder, enact, play. The overlapping inner couplets are behaviors, and the outer ring represent leadership capabilities, where thoughts and actions are observed together. I will now present each core category in detail, starting with sense, think, act. One core category formed around imaginative leaders with the holistic pattern of sense, think, act, with leaders processing sensing, thinking, and acting through behavioral couplets that play out an ongoing and iterative processes of sensing, thinking, acting, and daring, trying. Across interviews, participants described an openness to perceive novel ideas intrinsically linked with an intention to act on them. Embedded in the data for each behavioral couplet were three related imaginative capabilities: contextual cognition, innovative ignition, and fearless experimentation. To participants, imagination required an openness to receive the right information for thinking up improved scenarios. Sensing thinking is a behavior of simultaneously perceiving and pondering social problems within a context. Contextually cognitive capable leaders sense a problematic context and contemplates ways to improve it. For example, when Ms. Callahan became the principal of a staff accustomed to strict policies, she felt pressure from teachers to ban cell phones in the classroom. Meanwhile, she noticed that while most kids complied with the controlled access at school, she sensed that the teens regularly in her office for cell phone violations often turned to the phone out of boredom, a preoccupation, or a feeling of disconnected from school. Ms. Callahan contemplated what she could do to curb cell phone use by addressing what she thought the phone was actually signaling. She was also aware that whatever she does must ensure teachers feel supported and thought this was an opportunity to build relationships with staff. Thinking acting is a sense-informed thinking behavior that is inseparable from contemplations of action and considering how to make ideas come to life. Innovative ignition is the capability to imagine positive social change that includes motivation to serve as a catalyst to make it happen. These leaders describe valuing relationships as they seed imaginative activity. For example, as a principal, Ms. Callahan applied this capability to notice bored children and learn about kids with bigger concerns than school at home. Ms. Callahan contemplated how to lead teachers to improve their practice and relationships with students. In other words, rather than relying on one-size-fits-all policies, this imaginative leader modeled how to ignite innovation with ways to turn a problem into opportunities. Daring trying is exhibited through a willingness to give something new a try over continuing with dissatisfying situations. As a capability, Fearless experimentation is modeled by leaders who ignore or circumvent social perceptions and barriers to try new ideas and learn through action. Ms. Callahan stepped into imagine with teachers ways to enliven their lessons, such as taking lessons out of the classroom, using cell phones to support and document just-in-time research. By fostering an imaginative learning community that incentivizes imagining, this imaginative leader fearlessly experimented. Need a sip of water. A second core category formed around imaginative leaders was in a pattern of ponder, enact, play that emerged from childhoods full of experiential learning, from playing in unstructured time and in the absence of adult supervision, freeing them to explore, experiment, and enact with their ideas. Themes that inform this category emerge as behavioral couplets of wandering, pondering, exploring and acting, and collaborating, playing. These behaviors led to three more imaginative capabilities of empathetic contemplation, adaptive manifestation, and inclusive gamification, all related to generating and making social change, and abilities to effectively engage others in their imaginative work. As children, participants wandered and pondered with ample unstructured and unsupervised time for adventuring and not knowing what would happen, but going out to find out. On any given Saturday, Dominic was out on his bike looking for the bikes of other kids in neighborhood yards or over a wooden trail to look for them in Tecumseh Park. When he found kids, sometimes from other schools, he played their games to get along. This inclusive childhood behavior continued into professional practice. For example, early in the year, as a district director of programs and services, Eloise would find different sites on in-service days to meet strangers and discovered how to best support them. Later in the year, she would prioritize fairs and showcases as a way to connect with them while celebrating accomplishments, assess their supports, and dream about what could be done next year. The behavioral theme of exploring and acting emerged from participants exploring curiosities and making something out of nothing. Like when Michelle was 4 and she put on classes and performances for older kids. As a principal, Michelle demonstrated adaptive manifestation capabilities, imagining and creating engaging spaces and educational activities simultaneously, and refining their innovations in real time. Michelle jumped in to build a culture of learning by doing. Even in the absence of encouraging caregivers, participants could be seen collaborating and playing, which fostered people skills. This developed a capability for inclusive gamification in leaders who engage a wide variety of people in working together on fun challenges playfully. Now, it is one thing for kids who could lay on the grass and compete for the wildest things they could ever envision in the clouds to then grow into adults who played together to envision a draft of what a 21st century school should be. Perhaps the greatest surprise that came out of this study's finding is the identification of imaginative leadership as its own distinctive leadership style, observable through a malleable, holistic framework of behaviors and capabilities that improve education. This study further revealed a new understanding of imaginative activity extending beyond the head to include the body and context, and where an imaginative leadership style can evolve to integrate what works into a leadership practice. Because imaginative leaders can consistently navigate constraints and solve meaningful problems, their leadership style is worthy of more attention for its potential benefit, not yet leveraged at the system level. The next slide offers some recommendations for practice. As imaginative leaders explore multiple possible approaches to remedy school challenges, systems could see immeasurable gains from identifying and growing their leadership style. For instance, embedding fun in sensory, contemplative, exploratory, and collaboratively generative approaches to professional learning could instill a playful approach that is contagious, noted as essential to engagement for leaders who innovate. Systems could loosen bureaucratic attitudes, structures, and policies to allow imaginative leaders to approach unknown and unexpected challenges through their holistic and imaginative style. Findings also offer new pathways for research. These findings could lead to future qualitative research that examines if and how professional learning can be developed, can develop imaginative leadership capabilities in educational contexts and beyond. Through quantitative studies, large samples of imaginative leaders can be tested for generalizability, and it is also worth looking for where imaginative capabilities thrive or undervalued, underused, and overlooked in schools, and exploring where mainstream leadership styles might benefit through a transdisciplinary lens that includes this new model of leadership that addresses emergent complex challenges. Through this doctoral research, I was able to identify the behaviors and capabilities of imaginative leaders by acquiring a rich understanding of how these developed and identifying a new leadership style that is ripe for future research. I welcome your questions.
I've got one to start in. So
Thanks, Dan.
where do you see one of the biggest problems then within the education system that holds back some of this? Right. So as to me, I find we're still in a transition point between how we were dealing with things yesterday to where we're going. We're just at that point where some of the old way of doing things, we're retiring that out and we're looking at the next generation coming up. But where do you see as some of the larger roadblocks maybe to implementing and making this work in a more broad spectrum?
It's a culture of fear that goes from top to bottom, ubiquitously. I mean, Ken Robinson was making his recommendations that over 100 million people have paid witness to, and every educator I know that heard him speak in 2006 thought, yes, he's onto something, but nothing's really changed. The OECD is making dramatic recommendations for in curiosity-based, innovation-based curricula, but I haven't found any of that in North America at the high school level. I mean, they're making some curiosity-based stuff at the middle level, and they all signed on to the global competencies. Every jurisdiction in the OECD signed on to global competencies, developed their own, but it hasn't really translated into curriculum that would make people be more curious and adaptive and flexible and playful and take risks and chart the unknown. Now, as it's evident there, it also means that the leadership is not taking on, one, the position to develop that curriculum, or two, set up the conditions that enable it. The first series of my couplings there, Sense, Think, Act, is about the conditions. And Ponder and Act, Play is about what you can do when the conditions are set. Right? So what we notice is that these leaders are like they're constantly switching between both modalities, Sense, Think, Act, and Ponder and Act, Play, as the problems come to them. If the conditions aren't right, they got to stop and work on those. If the conditions are right to actually innovate with the staff member or with their team, they can do that. They can ponder and act, play on an innovation. But the first part is, if you don't have Sense, Think, Act happening, you're not going to have any innovation. It just won't happen. So they have to set those conditions. They have to playfully be in an environment where they can adapt and set those conditions. In jurisdictions like Halifax, for example, they rotate their leaders every 5 years. It could take a leader coming into that school 5 years to set the conditions where they can start to innovate, and then they're rotated out, right? So whoever comes into a school like that has to operate really quickly and skillfully and with confidence in a system that reifies conforming behavior to play it safe, which if you step out of line, it will not be rewarded unless if it really pays off, right? that is it's very much a reified in every angle that way. So we even asked our superintendent, who would have easily turned on uh, Google Earth for the system, because when he was a tech consultant, he would have totally done that. But now he's asked, do I turn it on? Has any other jurisdiction turned it on for students to use? No, then I'm not doing it first. Like, the right kind of person in that role, but doesn't feel safe to do that as the superintendent.
Thanks, Paul. It's a whole risk thing, right? Lindsay, go
Right.
ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your study. That was amazing. And I'm really interested in inclusive leadership. I kind of call myself an inclusive leader and
Right.
have
Good.
been studying that in the last few years. And I hear you talking about the blocks, and you're coming up. The big one that I see that you're talking about is the environment is very competitive and hierarchical. And the kind of leadership that you're talking about, imaginative leadership, flourishes in a non-competitive environment. In my experience,
You mean non-competitive, like within the team itself?
yeah,
Leaders leading a team that's supportive rather than as opposed to competitive?
yes, where when the voices are being spoken, it's not about how you look and climbing the ladder or making sure that you fit in. If you already know that you fit in, if it's already an inclusive environment, because it's a non-competitive one, and I know the school system is very competitive. Just the way it's set up with the hierarchy and being able to get your seniority, the whole thing, and it trickles down to the kids. So that isn't naturally safe.
Right.
So voicing our imaginations and what you were saying you need to feel kind of safe in that.
I mean,
Yeah.
when when somebody's applying for a leadership role, you can see them proposing imaginative ideas or some vision of what the school could improve here or there. But largely, I've watched that over my career become more about them getting the job, that motivated by getting the job, right principles. I want to do better for kids, but they're motivated to get the job. And once they get the job, some of those things can slide because, the motivation to get the job is being met. And doing things better for kids, there's a lot of competing forces that say, well, maybe you don't want to take this risk.
Yeah.
I've got on my list Kay Browning next.
Hi, Paul.
Hey.
Hi. Thanks a lot for your
See you.
presentation and congratulations on completing your PhD, Dr. Syme.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed your presentation. I like the layout. I like the text on the side. I really like seeing all the images. It was interesting. I also used grounded theory for my PhD that I completed a long time ago. But and grounded theory and in particular, and the assessment tool that you used as well. But something that I noticed, like we're all like-minded people here. We're all interested in creativity, or we would not be here in the first place. But something that I've noticed from teaching visual arts over 55 years and 28 those years being full-time teaching university, United States, Canada, different provinces at the university level, is that it's great when you're around other creative thinkers. If you work in a department where you have people who are artists or are creative thinkers, you can move and you can get things done in a particular way. But when you're in teaching in universities and I don't want to downplay science, but I've worked in some some universities that think in a linear way rather than a lateral way. And creative thinkers have to be both, because artists have to be great at business as well as doing their art, or they can't survive. But I find that creativity can be a threat, because imaginative thinkers and creative thinkers, they think outside the box. So when you're sitting in those meetings and somebody comes up with an idea that's very different to how the thinking or the process is going within that particular meeting, that can be seen with negativity instead of positivity.
Right.
And oftentimes that the suggestions being made to look at things in a positive light to possibly improve things in a situation, they're not that welcome sometimes. So it just depends on the environment which you are in as to how those suggestions are being perceived and whether you'll have success with being able to move your ideas forward or to help anybody with those particular ideas. So I just wondered if you ran across that at all, because here we are, we're all supporting creativity. We're a like-minded group, or we wouldn't be here. But when you're in those other situations and other environments, that's when I really see that kind of that brick wall. And that's when you really get to understand the role that creativity can and cannot play. So I just wondered if you could possibly comment on something like that, or if you've ever had an experience like that.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm glad you illuminated that. Every one of these participants were in that context, the one you speak of, but they were still able to innovate. That's why I did the study. How are people to work in a reified, conservative, linear thinking system and network and find a way to innovate? That means pulling together a team to imagine with them. So they were able to see those tensions and break them down. You notice the common factor was a lot of unstructured, unsupervised play as children. It means that we're going out and finding kids with different behaviors and attitudes and ages and learning how to navigate them. As one person said, he was able to have lunch with the homeless person and tea with the queen. He had that breadth of capabilities and sensibilities that made him able to go into any room and feel comfortable and safe and make the people they're with feel comfortable and safe and trusting, to break down those barriers. So sense, think, act set of behaviors and capabilities are all about navigating those tensions so they can do the next part of ponder and act, play to innovate. So that's what I found most fascinating. We're in a system that's highly resistant to, people, I'm going to say that differently. I think people come into teaching with most often with the right intentions. A lot of principals come in with the intentions to really make a difference for kids. And some of them are passionately driven by that compass. And Brene Brown popularizes and covers that as well as a grounded theorist. That shows how people are really have their compass driver and what's motivating them to move forward and do these types of human jobs. And then is to have the talents to be able to navigate that system to get something out of it. And so we used to believe that, I think in large part why we don't see this happen enough, or imaginative leadership capabilities aren't talked about, because people believe these things are innate, or somebody just happens to come with the right personality to navigate people. Boy, they're charismatic. And man, charisma can come with a lot of emptiness, and a lot of boring people can have the charm and the wit to navigate people. So it's a skill. These are capabilities. And these are the imaginative capabilities I'm suggesting they have, that they can deal with those tensions and barriers and overcome them.
Perfect. Next up, John.
Hi, all and everyone.
Hi, John.
My second time of joining this session, or joining one of these sessions. I got introduced by Dr. Scott, and this is amazing. And my mind's just going everywhere because everyone that's talking, like, oh my God, because I'm actually in the system, all three levels of the system. I currently teach in a middle school and have been in high school. I'm a woodshop teacher, so I'm kind of outside the regular. I also teach at University of British Columbia, the future, what we call tech ed or shop teachers of the world. And I've created programs for other universities, and I'm always trying to find ways to anticipate the 10-year down the road problem and create solutions. But every time something happens, I'm finding the frustration, because I love design theory and the design cycle and kind of use it as my code for all learning. But in terms of the leadership aspect, which is what my master's was in, I'm always frustrated and I'm wondering, Paul, through what you've done, or if anyone through what they've done, if they've noticed the trend, like here in my district and around the Lower Mainland in British Columbia, that the upper level of administration has started to hire younger and younger vice principals and principals. And because of that, their experience level is so low that they don't know how to innovate or not do anything but what the other people above them tell. It's always that, oh, I got to make a call when I come up with a question, that, oh, get back to you. I got to make a call on this. So it's like, we're never moving past the initial question ever. I could keep going and on and on, but I'm just interested in that element. Like, was there anything about that psychological safety with the youth of our administration, our leaders?
John, that's such a keen observation. Because like everyone I interviewed was older, like average age of 50.
Yeah.
And many of them had a career where they climbed to the top level you can get. As 3 of them were assistant deputy ministers from different provinces. And that means they've been principals. Some of them went back to being principals. Some of them were principals from early in their career. But I'm not convinced they were innovating then. I just believe they were determined to do right.
Right.
If you're in a system that's hiring a bunch of young people, it's really hard to find. And if you're mentored by young people, it's more challenging to find people that have gained the chops about. Before you can navigate a system, you really have to understand its complexities. And you can't learn its complexities in 5 years of teaching. It'd be very difficult, I imagine, to build a flesh of the complexities. Then a few years of being a principal or a VP to watch it, to move around a little bit, get a sense of its complexities and all that. It takes a lot of time. So I imagine it would be difficult to find those people that can really move the system forward the way they want to, because that's not what they're looking for when they're hiring principals. They're looking for people that will be system thinkers, because system thinkers can navigate complexity. They can make responsible decisions, and they can be what they're ultimately stating they're looking for, transformational leaders. We can help the system navigate it to have it move forward incrementally, but not take any major leaps like we desperately need if we're going to meet our sustainability goals as a society. So I think that your keenness there is that we're really at a paradoxical position right now.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is, or if there is, or a movement. But so, I mean, when I started in the system, say, okay, if you wanted to go into administration, you did your time teaching, and then you wanted to be a principal. Now it's like academic inflation. No one wants to be a principal anymore. You want to be the superintendent. So, but you got to put your time in as the VP and the principal and not do anything bad, but try and find something innovative. And so you slap your name on all these things, but you never really follow through. But you're attached to your resume built is unbelievable. And again, someone else said it was cynical. And I'm trying not to be cynical.
You're
but
not being cynical.
It's just a trend that I'm noticing.
You've observed a real phenomena, and you got the language to observe it, and you mentioned it very respectfully too. So I think you have the chops to do it.
One of the people too much more time, but
one of the people I interviewed came from tech ed, teacher. And he was one of the most innovative people that I interviewed in the whole process. And because they could see it, they saw it very clearly, what was going on, and had the bravado to make changes. So, we're the position you're in with the lens you have, keep chopping away.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I got Fred next and then Peter after that.
Well, I was thinking mostly of research trends to carry on, because I was thinking, what are the impacts on the staffs, for example, of innovative leaders? What actually is happening in the practitioners? Because a phenomena that I observe when you were talking about empathetic, first day of school, you're doing your introduction to your classes, and you sit there and tell them what book you're going to do, how the course is going to be graded, and all these things.
Yeah, I never do that.
Instead, if you started in right away with exploring and playing and discovery and building a classroom culture. So I'm thinking, well, what do the innovative leaders do on the first day with their people?
Right.
What happens to initiate the culture? Because
That's a
if you do
great
it too late,
indicator.
it doesn't have the impact.
It's like, you know, we're broadcasters, right? Teachers, principals. You should always be thinking about your audience first. What do they want to hear? Kids don't want to hear the course outline. They're conditioned to believe that's what the first day's about, but they want to be inspired. So does your staff as a leader. I mean, that's the way we should be. Like, who's our audience on first day? Not the school board who wants us to go through a slideshow of all of the policies they need to know. The teachers want to be inspired that we have a vision for this year. It's going to be the year that makes a difference. I mean, that's on a longer multi-year plan. That's exciting. So that's a really good point, Fred. Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Paul. I had the privilege of leading Innovative Shift for a couple of decades here and a decade in Newfoundland. And I can tell you exactly why people don't go there. It's the status quo is an incredibly powerful animal, and you had better have thick skin and intestinal fortitude. I had a huge piece of luck in my life. I had my mum, who brought myself and my two brothers up in the slums of Liverpool, in the same place where Sir Ken Robinson went to school, actually Norris Green. And if you look it up, you better sit back from your screen because it's quite a place to have been brought up. But my mum, without really talking about it, just by modeling it to us, gave us a sense of being, gave us a sense of integrity, of if you're going to do something, do it. And don't be looking over your shoulder too much, although there's a political reality to that.
Yeah.
During that 20-year,
Right.
30-year process, I've got to tell you, and I've started to tell some of the stories now because I'm now 7 years out of it. But some of the nonsense that was perpetrated against me, the threats, the direct threats, the intimidation it's head scratching. And so in the latest set of writing that I'm doing, I shouldn't really say this now because I really should want to save it and sell some books. But anyway, there are three what I frame as hierarchy. All this comes down to hierarchy, the whole thing. The solution comes through flattening hierarchy. But the three hierarchies for me that have led us into this mess where we hurt more kids than we help, and we hurt more families than we help. The first one is the hierarchy of how we define intelligence, who's intelligent and who's not. The second is the hierarchy of creativity, who's creative and who's not. How
Right.
dare we? How dare we? And you mentioned the OECD, which made me nearly, I'm not going to say it, because now they've bought into the hierarchy. They've bought into the fact that Ken Robinson identified all those decades ago how important it is. What are they going to do? Test it. The same freaking rabbit hole. So
Critical
I have
thinking, creative
no
thinking
time,
test.
and I can't find too much research against the OECD. Why? Because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the third hierarchy is the hierarchy of how we manifest and put into play leadership. Everybody is a leader. For me, the leaders have got one job. One, set in place the cultural condition for the brilliance that lies within everybody
Right.
to emerge. Now, when you do that, as Stan and I have seen, magic happens.
Thank you, Peter. You're spot on. Like the model that I discovered here, the theory that is developed here is that these people pull other people into play with them.
Mm.
They've been playing their whole lives. They haven't stopped playing. What's centered to this is play. And so as adults in the professional environment, they're saying, okay, I'm going to turn this into a play space where we're playing seriously for kids. And now I'm not going to be the innovator. Like I'm not the necessarily one coming up with ideas. I can be daft with ideas, but I'm imaginative in my capabilities are to flow with other people and to bring them up to come up with things. They weren't coming up with their innovations necessarily at school either. It was things off site where they have a social time together over a couple pops, over going to visit other sites, going out for breakfast. That's where they're coming up with the ideas, and because they inevitably talk about work and they bring it back with them because they feel safe to play with them. So the best ideas I always hear are from buddies out playing. We play hockey together, we go up and laugh together, and then we come up with solutions we bring back to work. That's how it happens. It's not hierarchical. You're right. Oh, by the way, it's interesting because Andy Hargraves also comes from your area.
Oh no, don't ever say that to him. No, I'm
No,
from
doesn't he?
Liverpool. I'm from Liverpool.
No, okay.
He's from Yorkshire. Oh dear, that's a terrible
Yorkshire.
mistake. Oh no, is he Yorkshire or Lancashire? Anyway, yeah.
Lancashire, I think. Okay. Never mind. I was making a connection because collaborative professionalism, that book starts to talk about that flattening of the hierarchy too, of we're all there working together from different roles, which every jurisdiction has picked up and tried to spread it around their culture, and then they give up.
Well,
right?
yeah, I'll just stay mute right now.
Because it's funny how it's great ideas don't take off yet necessarily. They take a long time. Next.
Lindsay, go up for it.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that what you just said, Paul, can you repeat that again? Because I need that prompt.
About the hierarchy is being flattened?
Yeah, and what was something doesn't take off? Was it the play?
The play, yeah.
Maybe.
You need the play in order to come up with those imaginative ideas.
Yeah, so like part of your study was about sensing, right? Like you're looking at the sensing. This is where I think where we're not going further in our leadership skill building. And I'm very interested in the phenomenon of connecting with a difference, because when we're working on a problem, when we're problem solving, there's something that we're coming up against that's different, inevitably, right? That's different from me or from where I want to go, or some kind of perceived difference that needs to be corrected or changed or addressed. And what happens to my sensing body? What is happening in that moment? And that's where the skill, I think, for leadership is it's not in the literature, and that's kind of where I'd like to go, is with
dive in.
that.
Lindsay, you're right. There's like what I noticed with them talking about their developmental experiences of these leaders was that they are out in their environment, sensing their environment and what's going on, sensing other people, being really observant about their language behaviors, sensing their physical environment and their context. When they're out playing in the wilderness, all these talks about outside exploring and sensing and seeing and imagining from what they see or touch. And as we know, how much we learn somatically by being within the body and within the sensorium. And my first participant brought it up and it stuck through all the other participants was they said literally, I can't separate thinking from doing, sensing thinking from doing. Like it's all one and the same. There's no division here. And we always talk about imagination as in the head, right? As a cognitive thing. We look at it psychologically that way. But according to their experience or lived experience, the experience from the sensorium through action there's no dividing point. And that imagination has happened within and beyond the body into the context, as if we are a living organism tied to our environment. Right? So, and you're right. If you dig in the literature on somatic learning, there's a lot there, but somatic learning and tied to leadership, it is not there. When you move to that location and dig in, There's a lot to be dug into. In a grounded theory would be a way, or phenomenology, some way to get to their lived experiences. Depends if you want to codify it or not. It'd be great. Yeah, there's a big hole to look into there.
John, and then Steve.
Well, and now you're speaking everything that just makes me so excited. Okay, two things. The whole census thing, to me, where my kind of personal research is going, mostly because my father-in-law just got diagnosed with Parkinson's early, a slow acting. But of course, I started driving down the rabbit hole because I wanted to learn more about it, and I came upon the research of grip strength connected to mental wellness. And so I've started looking at, okay, again, the study is like, so the stronger the grip, the actually better the brain and action able to keep that mental acuity the older we get. But when I looked at the study, I was like, you couldn't really find it, but it seems like it's everyone who is 60 years or older that grew up climbing trees, being in that place-based areas, doing all those things. But if we look at the youth of today and how they've grown up, particularly in urban areas, they don't have those things. So what is going to be the detriment of not developing that grip strength on the mental acuity, so on and so forth? That's something to talk about. But I wanted to ask about the play based, because my colleague and I have developed some research that actually we broke into three different things, which is developing a design thinking mindset through story. And once you develop the inspiration of story and how it plays it, then you do it through play. And then we actually figure out ways to enact that through activities that cause you to overcome failure. So I just wanted to know if you had anything in terms of that play, if you had any sort of inspiration that connected to the power of story.
Now, Kieran Egan's old stuff is about imaginative development through story. Like, it deals with that a fair bit. And Jillian would, who's usually here, is one of the greatest experts on the planet about that. So I would look at the imaginative development through story through Jillian, or directly just look up Kieran Egan through myth and story, the state, and play. Like there's I'm wary about our generational conversations about saying this generation, that generation, because I think that a lot of these experiences are being found in other places. I'm hoping. I'm not convinced that they don't have it. I'm not convinced that when we put ourselves into the story of a video game and the variables within it, that the kids aren't doing imaginative activity in there as well. Things like Minecraft is really adapt to it. It's just not, it's less in the whole body. It's just less of the whole body. But they're getting a lot of the imaginative activity in there. I know my friends and I spent a lot of time on Donkey Kong as kids in the 80s too. So we spend a lot of time wasting time in video games too. Or kids playing cards and board games. It's not a whole lot different. Depends how you spend your time. Or kids always in books. They're not necessarily moving either. Right? So but there's a lot of kids playing high-level sports far more than ever, especially girls. They weren't playing these sports before. And now there's so many girls involved in high-level physical activity and sport that it's really encouraging. Like rugby and hockey. Look at that. Look at how effective they are being in those sports. But we wouldn't have had past generations. A whole half of our genders are just not out of our population, just not out playing those activities, but now they are. So I think there's opportunity to look at sport and for play. And as we learn more about different ways of dynamic thinking, taking things like we should be teaching. I really believe we need to teach innovation, the tools of innovation to help imagination, like system thinking, biomimicry, synectics, and design thinking are all these tools that we've been talking about. Why aren't we teaching the nuts and bolts of those things and using instruments that are being developed that tend to work? Like synectics is a wonderful instrument and for teaching an improvisation. Thank you. Yeah, I had to take out old chunks of out of my thesis because I was making these recommendations, not privy to this conversation, but the arts, right? Dramatic arts, music arts, visual arts, and using these systems that we know stimulate imaginative behavior, and drawing together where we saw in neuroscience how the aha moment occurs by disparate thoughts connecting through our subconscious mind. And so how do we mimic that, stimulate it? That's what improv and sygnetics are great for. So yeah, there's stuff out there. It's just to go and dig it up. And I also posit this: use AI. You have the question you just had right there. I'd plug it into ChatGPT and see what answers you get and dig down those rabbit holes. But just looking through the research too, right? It really does prompt possibilities quickly. I hope that helps. There's great links coming into the chat right now too. Video improv. Kim is as a master at this stuff. Good to see you, Kim. Yeah, he did wonders with my classes with that years back.
Very last question for the evening, as we've kind of got to that time, is for you, Steve. Go for it.
Thank you very much. Similar to John, I'm exhilarated to be here. I'm a career hotelier, 35 years, and now a serial volunteer with youth. So Paul, I was amazed with the content. I'm a fan of Peter Gamwell. I've read both his books. I've seen him in action, full disclosure. What can I do and who can I speak to speak about what this group is doing? Is it the principal, the superintendent, the director of education, a politician? Where do I start?
That's a question for everybody here.
Probably start where your heart leads you, right? Like, start where your heart leads. When I try and explain what's happening when we have these discussions, I can branch off in a million different directions to go, who needs to know this? Everybody needs to know, because I think we trap ourselves in places of, we put ourselves back in boxes. We're not thinking outside the box. We get stuck in our personal hierarchies and our silos, and we're lost in there, right? So when it comes to that discussion, where does your heart put you? That's what I would say.
Thank you, Stan.
It's true. Start with the people you know you have a direct conversation with and just invite them in. You should really join us. Just come for 1 hour on a Thursday night.
Yeah, what I have to find is the elevator pitch. Those 10 words, because as Peter knows, I'm long-winded. And I'm very passionate. Now, through my Twitter account, you could see some of the work I'm doing, but I need to be very mindful of where I spend my time, because I could wear myself with all these torpedoes and all these things coming about. Sharon, you had some advice for me?
I was just going to say, do what you love and see where that takes you. I'm an educator, and I got my degree from Berkeley, and then I went teaching elementary, and then I went back to school, did my fine arts degree, and then I was teaching in the schools. And now I was asked to teach virtually during the pandemic. And as a consequence of that, I still have virtual classes, and I love what I do. And I ask the students, okay, guys, what are we going to learn? What do you want to do? I put it back to the students. I take the power, I share it with them, and we do what we want to do as a group. So start with yourself.
And what a perfect place to kind of bring everything to a close, right? I always hate when we have to go, because what you tend to find is, and those of you that have been here, we kind of really get racing closer to the end. And this, like, is our last one for 2024. I want to thank you, Paul, for doing that. That was amazing. Thank you for the discussion. And that's exactly what it is that we're here for, right? It's all about, where are we finding our creativity? Where are we finding our innovation? And now, you know what? I'm going to challenge you as you walk away from here tonight. How are you spreading that? If this group means something to you, and it's so nice to see everybody coming back, talk about this. Make this a subject matter to share just how magical 1 hour can be every third Thursday of the month, right? We really appreciate that. So with that, then, to help you do that, we are socially connected. So you can lead people to our website at, check this out, www.canadiannetworkforimagination.and creativity.com, all one big word. We can be found on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, right? Find us there. Go check out our website, register for the Idea Jams. You can see what we're about, and you can share that information with people you know to kind of trigger those conversations, right? This means a lot to me and to the rest of the steering committee, and we are so glad that you join us every month. It's great to see people come back. We're excited to see new people, and we're glad you take your Thursday evening and share that with us. So as we close for tonight, I want to thank you again for this past hour and for ending our 2024 with a bang. We look forward to seeing you again in the new year, and we come back in January to our second half of our season. On January 16th, it is, with Alexis Milligan and Dr. Glenn Bandiera discussing the theater of medicine. So don't miss out on that one either. So keep an eye on your emails. If you're not getting emails from us, get to our website, register yourself, and we'll make sure that you're in there. On behalf of all of us here at Scenic, we do wish you and your family and your friends a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas to those of you that celebrate it, and a very happy New Year. Let your creativity shine over the holidays, and wherever you are, wherever you go, be safe, be happy, and be together. So join us again in the new year. Season's greetings, everybody. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, everyone.
Evening, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Way to go, Paul.
Thank you.